Hi, it's Scott. This is Battery Exhausted, my vlog. We're in the kitchen. Turnip jam. Turnip jam. Careful with the knives. I just want to say quickly that if you're doing this recipe and you've got kids or pets around, then as fun as it might be to make your own jam, be really careful with this massive pot of boiling hot, really sticky jam, because if that comes down on you, it's going to be an absolute nightmare. So be really careful when you're making jam. Don't wear loose baggy clothes that could pull the pot off. Don't have your jewellery hanging down, getting caught in that. You know, don't mess around. It is dangerous stuff. Be careful. Enjoy yourself. Welcome to the polytunnel, where the tomatoes are growing over the path. Turnips we're after today. In here are lots of turnips. Loads. Loads. There's still some turnips growing in there, but otherwise, look at that. I've just decimated them. Taken out a big full basket of them. Turnip haul. Matey's eating the grass. Got a couple more nice courgettes growing. So check it. Yeah, mate? This is technically a haul video, isn't it? It's a haul video. Allotment haul. Not shopping. I didn't spend any money on this other than the outlay of the allotment, the seeds. But these are turnips. We've got quite a few. Let me show you my two courgettes. Look, this is a big. That's a bad boy, isn't it? Look at that big lunker. Mine, that's a real lunker. If you've ever played Zelda. And that's a normal size courgette there next to it. A near perfect courgette. So we've got the courgettes in. Yeah, we've got courgettes in the house. But we've also got turnips. Look at them. An abundance of turnips. So I'm going to make jam. You might call it jelly. But it's jam. First thing we're going to do. Wash them. Let's get it on. Ta-da! That did just take me about an hour. Maybe not that long. Maybe not that long. But they are nice clean turnips now. Should we see how many we've got? Do you want to play guess the weight? Here, Navy's claws behind me. Hello matey, should we play guess the weight? Okay, so big bowl. Should we do this in grams or should we do it in ounces? Turned it off now. Still rolling. Unstable. So I think we'll do it in ounces, pounds and ounces. I've been watching some videos by another YouTube producer, specifically gun videos. We'll come to that in another video. But in their videos, they're continually referring to ounces, pounds, you know, inches, feet. And they're continually referring to it as the American system. And it's been kind of annoying me. Because, of course, the imperial system, not the metric system, but the imperial system of inches, feet, or pounds and ounces, that imperial system is named after the empire. That's why it's called the imperial system. And the empire that it's named after isn't the empire of the Sith, it's the British Empire. So not being too patriotic or nationalistic or anything like that, but just stating the facts, the imperial system is British. And we still use it in Britain. We talk about miles instead of kilometres. Our speedometers run in miles per hour. We talk about ounces and pounds. So, the scale's gone off, I've been ranting. So are you ready to find out in ounces how much turnip we have. What's your guess? I've got two quite big bowlfuls here. Lost one there. I've also held back a few of the smaller pretty ones. They've been held back, they're not going in the jam. They're going to be cooked by me in different meals. So how many ounces of turnip? Let's do it. What did you guess? Oh, I didn't guess. I'll stop. I'll quickly stop. I'll stop. I'll guess at about... Well, hang on. Each turnip is going to weigh about an ounce at least, isn't it? And there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. There's 12 of them. So I'm going to guess about 24 ounces. Right, already I'm completely wrong because we're already at 30 ounces. How many ounces of turnip have I got? 76, 85, 92. Look at this, 110, 114 ounces. 114.85, so nearly 115. And I've still got the pretty ones. A handful of pretty ones. That could easily tot it up to 120. Bonus. Turnip haul. Look at them. Turnip haul. 120. And that figure in grams is 3 kilograms, 256 grams. 3,256 grams, or in American numbers, 3,200 grams. Oh, I love you, America, but I'm just teasing. Okay. Right, I now realise that the amount of jam I'm going to be producing with this 3 kilograms of turnips, that the amount of jam I'm going to be producing with 3 kilograms of turnips is going to be quite vast. Right then. Right then. Right then. This is jam making 101. Turnip jam. What we got? Ingredients. Let's just move that out of the way. It's a good place to put it. Yeah, you can't see it there, can you? Just an empty bowl. Right, the ingredients. Turnips. Obviously I've got loads of them. We're going to be using some ginger in this recipe for flavour. Also for flavour, star anise and cardamoms. Whoops. In this fine little glass bowl. Might get you a shot of them to edit in. I've got sugar. And I've also got lime juice. Could use lemon juice or citric acid. We'll come to that in a minute. What we're going to be doing, we're going to be chopping up some turnips, putting them in this big saucepan and cooking it down with lots of sugar and a couple of little ingredients, and then it's going to turn into jam, or jello if you're American. But I hear you cry, Scott, you haven't bored us with science, so let's do that. What's going to happen when we cook the jam, jello, is that this turnip is full of something called pectin, and pectin is the cell structure. It's like a structural form. It's made of strings of what do you call it? Carbohydrates. It's made of strings of carbohydrates. Pectin's made of strings of I didn't want to have to edit this. I wanted this to just go all in one, so it made it sound like I definitely knew what I was talking about. To be honest, I have just done some research on the internet, and I will include like little links to the valid web pages that I found handy in the description below. But for this purpose of this video, let's explain. Pectin is found in something like this turnip, in any fruit and vegetable, and it's a structural form. It is made of strings of, I keep wanting to say hydrocarbons. It's not hydrocarbons. What are they bloody called? Carbohydrates, yeah. It's made of strings of carbohydrates called polysaccharides. And we want to take that string of polysaccharides, not hydrocarbons. See, this is where I keep getting it wrong. I keep saying hydrocarbons. Carbohydrates. We want to take that string of carbohydrates that holds that together, and we want to break it down, and then we want to reform it in the jam so that it holds together what's in the jar, the whole mix. So what we're actually going to do is break it down in molecular terms, like this is science now.
It's science.
We're breaking down the molecules and we're reforming them in a new form, a molecular web that's going to hold together the jam. Okay, so I'm going to start chopping these into little matchsticks. I'll just give you a quick example before I start doing the full batch. Just going to chop them up into little matchsticky size pieces for this. So that's what I'm doing, and while I'm doing it, I'm going to talk to you about, actually let's put a little bit of water in there as well, isn't it? To stop from discolouring, while I'm doing it, I'm going to talk to you about jam and what it is that's happening in jam to make it set, the magic or science behind the jam. Okie dokie. So it might be a bit boring, but you know, stay with me for boring chat about jam. So inside these turnips, what's giving them their structure is a compound called pectin. Pectin is formed from a string of carbohydrates called polysaccharides. Yep. Careful with your fingers. So they're formed from a string of carbohydrates called polysaccharides, and what we want to do, that pectin is giving this structure, and what we want to do is we want to take it out of here and mix it all up in our jam and give our jam structure instead. So I hear you cry, how are you going to get the pectin out of there? Well, fortunately, pectin is soluble, which means it will dissolve in the water. And to help it do that, we're going to be adding heat. Pectin is soluble, it will dissolve in the water. We add heat and that's going to make it happen all the more quickly. Cool. So why don't we just boil up a load of vegetables? Why isn't that jam? Well, usually use fruit, of course. I am using turnips. Yes, that might seem strange. We'll get to that in a bit. But why don't you just boil them all up? Because you need that structure to reform in the jam. It's no good at just being loads of pectin molecules all drifting around in the mix. We want them to reform and come back together. So what we do, because pectin, the little bugger, is not quick to reform, it's negatively charged, ionically, and this is getting really scientifically technical now, but you know, this is why it happens. The pectin is negatively charged ionically, so it doesn't want to attach to itself. What we do is we add sugar because it wants to attach to the sugar, and also we add acid in the form of lime juice or citric acid. And what the acid does is, the acid is very positively charged and it neutralises that charge in the pectin. So the pectin is now no longer negatively charged, no longer repellent to itself, but in actual fact what it wants to do is attach, because it's now neutral. And it's got sugar, glucose, is in there, simple form of hydrocarbon, carbohydrate, simple form of carbohydrate, and the sugar, it quite happily will bond with the sugar. And then pectin is going to be left to bond with it. So now what we're starting, not quite finished yet though, because the sugar also does something else. One of the things we're doing, the reason we're making this jam, is because I've got loads of turnips and I want to preserve them. I'm not going to be able to eat them all right now, and so I want to find a way of storing them so that I've got food to eat all year round that I've grown in the allotment. I'm going to be freezing some, and I'll do another video about how to freeze vegetables, because you can't just put them in the freezer, they don't just work like that. But this is going to be a method of stocking my shelf full of lovely jam. I won't have to buy any jam from the supermarket, and it's all going to be made from turnips that I grew myself in the allotment. Yummy. We're going to want to keep this in the cupboard for like weeks, months. We need to preserve it. Jams are called preserves, you know. I just said the word a few times. So what do? Science again. Science comes to help us again. One of the things the sugar's doing is it's going to bond to any remaining, once you boiled it off, if there's any remaining moisture, any remaining H2O, then the sugar is going to bond to it, which means there's less available water in your mix because it's all bonded with the sugar, which means that bacteria can't get a foothold because they need that moisture to grow. And the second method of preservation is the acid, is the acid in the fruit juice, the lime juice, or the citric acid that we might add. I probably won't, I'll probably just use lime juice. But it's the acidity, because again, bacteria needs the right environment to grow in, and an acidic environment, not acidic, is not conducive to bacterial growth. Bonus. Just picking out the little bits that have slightly gone discoloured there. But this is going good. Still got loads to chop. What we're doing is creating a web, a molecular web, out of pectin that we're removing from its home in the vegetable or fruit, and reforming inside our preserve. And lo and behold, the other things that really help, the acid and the sugar, they both help the pectin to form into its web, but also help to create an environment that's unsuitable for bacterial growth, therefore preserving our produce. That was it all just summed up. So so let me talk quickly about why I'm chopping it up in this shape. A couple of reasons. One is that we're going to want to break down that pectin, so the more surface area that I put on my pieces of turnip, the more that action can happen. It can be dissolved in the water more quickly. Second is that this is designed to be put in jars and then spooned out, take out with a knife, maybe spread on something. So I'm not going to want great big clunking pieces of vegetable in there, even though they're going to be broken down through the cooking process. And also at the end I'm going to give it a bit of a hand mash. But what I want is just a uniform, it's not uniform, they're all uneven, but they're all uneven, so there's going to be some uniformity to that unevenness, if that makes sense. Uneven, but uneven all over. And I want them reasonably thin enough, small enough to, you know, to be enjoyable on the palate as a jam. So that's why I'm putting in this extra effort to chop these pieces into these sizes. But it's not entirely necessary, you know, and that idea, the shape of your preserve, can be experimented with, of course. Something else that is worth noting is that the proportions, the portion sizes, whatever. Like, I'm going to do quite a lot. I've got a lot of jars. I'll show you them in a minute. But you don't have to do loads. In fact, it's probably better to do small amounts of jams to start with, till you get your groove and you know your recipes and you know what works for you and what doesn't. You don't want, you know, 20 jars of something that you don't really want to eat. Anyway, in terms of quantities, I've got my turnip quantity almost mapped out for me based on how many jars I've got available and how many turnips I've got available. But if you're doing this, you know, to order, then you might want to do a smaller portion. And it's worth noting that I'm not, you know, I'm not a big fussy measurer and all that. There is science involved here, so you know I need the right amount of lemon juice or lime juice or enough, but not too much. But even now, I still kind of judge it a bit because I'm used to having measured it out a few times. You know, I'm used to seeing it. So, but you will be able to find those exact measurements on this particular webpage, which is an excellent webpage with all the facts and figures about jam. And one of the important pieces of information from that is basic quantity is 40% fruit, vegetable, solids, 60% sugar, roughly, is going to work. You need enough sugar in there to make the process happen, and also to act as a preservative, because if there's not enough sugar, it's not going to do that job as a preservative. In fact, it'll probably just end up as fuel for the bacteria. Sorry if I'm coming across a bit ranty today. What it is it's a hot day. I've been doing some stuff down the allotment. I've also been doing bits and pieces. I've walked the dog. I've been setting up to do this. Been reading that book in the other room. Boxing's on at 8 o'clock and I want to watch it. I want to talk about it with you in another video. And I'm trying to do this. And the camera, the Nikon D3100, because my good camera's set up in the other room to do the reading of the book, my D3100 overheats when I'm recording video. So it's overheating and battery exhausted. Great, name of the vlog, funny, yeah. But the fact that it goes off every now and then is winding me up a bit. So that's why I'm in a sort of narc, sort of bit of a funk there. And I did set all this up really nicely. Look, I've got all this stuff set up, ready to do this, to talk to you, to show you how we're making jam. But once I've done all that setting up, and it's truth told 8 o'clock now, I kind of feel like, fuck making jam, let's just sit down, have a cold fake beer and, you know, just relax. So I'm battling with the D3100 overheating. That's what's knocking me off. So sorry, can't be all happy-go-lucky every vlog, can I? But I'm not in a bad mood. I'm quite happy, and I'm finding the methodical process of chopping up this turnip to be quite... Whoops, that nearly slipped off then. But good job on holding it nicely, so I'm not going to hurt myself. Yeah, the methodical process of chopping it up is quite cathartic. It's quite mindfulness practice. So there is something meditative about this as well. Annoying when I'm knocking it over there. Just have to keep checking the camera to see it's not gone off. But there is something quite cathartic about this too, for me. Be even more cathartic with a cold fake beer. But anyway, in terms of quantities, like I said, I'm going to use about 60% sugar. So whatever my figure was. And of course you've got to experiment with this. This is the first time I've made turnip jam. So it might be that turnip jam requires slightly less sugar. It might be that turnips are very high in pectin. It might be that too much sugar makes it crystallise, which is a problem if you put too much sugar in, you know. So you could be careful, or you could be reckless like me. But we're going to do that with the sugar. We're going to do about 60% worth. So I've forgotten how much turnip I'm chopping already. I've forgotten. 1 kilogram. I remembered now. So I'm going to put about... What would that be, viewers? Do you want to do some mathematics? If 1 kilogram is 40%, how much is 60%? Well, one more 40% is 1 more kilogram, and we just need another 20%, which is half of the kilogram. So 1.5 kilograms of sugar. And how much acid? That's difficult. That is difficult. I have no special formula for that. I just sort of add maybe half of that bottle of lime juice. But one more point to make. One more point to make. Let's move this in and see if you can see it. Just about covered with water. That's the idea. I don't want it to be too soaking wet so that it's going to end up having to boil away for ages. And at the same token, I don't want it to be totally dry in the pan. Now when we add that sugar, it's probably going to thicken up a bit, so I might put some more water in there. However, point being, I'm not just going to add all the ingredients straight away. Because, like I said, there's that chemical process that's going on. First of all, we want the pectin to dissolve into the water, and then we want to try and combine it with itself through the sugar and adding the acid. So a little bit of acid at the start will help to remove some of that pectin, sure, but putting it in too early, having it boil away, and I don't know, it's just not something I feel to do. I always put it in a little bit later when it needs to start doing that work. And at the same time I can taste it and see how acidic it's getting. Right, time to get this on the boil. And it's going to have, like I said, what, 1 kilogram of sugar and a bit. That's 1 kilogram in that bag. I told you we were doing it in pounds and ounces, didn't I? That's a pound of sugar. Yesterday I picked the turnips and today I'm making the gravy. So it's not gravy, is it? It's jam. So I forgot that. Sorry. Been mixing my imperial and metric system. That's what's happened. It's happened, don't worry. But this is going to boil up first. Start to what I call clocking, which I stole off Giorgio Locatelli, a fantastic chef. The terminology clocking, just hear it just going clock, 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 clock. I'm just going to bring it up to that on the hob. And at the same time, mention the ginger. The ginger, fuck off Mr. Big Fly, you wanker. Why don't you put one of your friends out the window? The ginger's great because it's going to add flavour to this. It's going to add tang, and that is good. But it's also got lots of fibres in it. So let's show you how to chop a bit of ginger. Just quickly. Give myself a nice flat edge. Yeah. And another one to work off there. And what we're going to do is just run the knife down it. So I'm just peeling the ginger like that. If it's difficult, you know, if I'm having to wobble it around, I'm not doing it, I'm just re-stabilising it on its base. Just running it down like that. And I can turn it over, and I can do the same with the bits that were then difficult that are now easy, sort of thing. So we're peeling our ginger like that, yeah? And then I'm going to grate it in, because it's got these fibres. Look, if you look at that, you can see them there, these fibres. And if they're not broken down through the cooking process, it might seem to someone who's eating the jam that it's got quite a lot of bitty, hairy bits in. I mean, that might look like a dog hair. So to prevent that from happening, I'm going to grate it into the dish. Again, I'm going to do that a bit later as well when I add the lime juice, because it's about taste and flavour. But at this early stage, we could add the star anise if you wanted it to be very mild. The earlier you add it, the more it's going to cook down, break up. But at this early stage, we could add some star anise and a cardamom, so I'm going to do that. So later on, once it's had a chance to boil and we get our sugar in, we're going to start talking flavour. But for now, I'm just going to tidy up quickly. Yipers. So, shall we have a look at some jars? That's on the hob. Hasn't even started clocking away yet, but there it is. And here's my array of jars. Don't they look cool? They've all been given a good wash. And my mum even bought some of these little display jars, which are really dinky and cute. So we are going to use a few of those. But even though they've been washed, there's something we need to do. Oh, and Scott's top tip for getting labels off. Some kind of WD-40 oil-based spray. That's maintenance spray for hinges and stuff. You spray that on, and then you'll get the labels off really easy. Top tip. But we're going to have to sterilise them before we put the jam in. We don't want any bacteria or any microbes or anything like that in this jam coming in there, ready in the jar when we put the jam in it. We want it to be completely sterile. This is going to have all cooked up on the hob, so it will be sterile. But that, even though it's really clean, might not be perfectly sterile. So before we put the jam in, we're going to boil it in some boiling water, which isn't in the pan yet. But we're going to plop each jar into some boiling water, take it out, and then that will be it sterilized. And then we can put the jam in, and then we can cap them off, which I'll show you at the end. The battery's going to run out now, but I wanted to show you a secret weapon. Hidden in the back of my cupboard here. Posh cordial. We've got two kinds of posh cordial, and these aren't really my bag. Elderflower and posh ginger. Elderflower is quite sweet, sickly fragrant. And the ginger, I've drunk a glass of that. It's like fire in a glass. But of course, what we're making is going to be a combination of strange flavours in it. The turnip's not exactly sweet, but we're going to be sweetening it, and then there's going to be some acidic in there from the lime juice and stuff. The fire of the ginger is going to work really well with it, but maybe a bit of extra fire from the cordial would help, in the same way as I'm using the lime juice. But you've got to consider that that's liquid, so it's going to want to boil off as well, so adding more liquid to it. So it's there as a secret weapon if I feel things aren't getting flavourful enough. And one more secret weapon. Lapsang Souchong Posh Tea. You know I'm not into my brands and all that, but this is Lapsang Souchong from the Posh Tea Company, and that's really smoky. It's almost paprika smoky. So whilst I'm not going to use it in this recipe particularly, I want to try this recipe with just the turnip and the ginger. I could add a smoky note to anything by whacking a bag of tea bag in there, and I do that with things like chili con carne or chili non carne because I'm vegan. But yeah, I do that with that. You add, it sounds stupid, but you can either brew it up in a little bit of cup with a little bit of water and add that to your dish, or you can literally drop a tea bag in your dish and let it brew for a little bit. Taste as you go, see that smoky note develop, taste it, feel it develop, and then you know you're away. Yeah. Secret weapon number 2: smoky flavour. Fire, smoke. It's going to be fiery and smoky, isn't it? This turnip stuff. Barbecue turnip dip, jam, whatever. Do you see my attitude then? You know, I still haven't chilled out yet today. That's what I need to do. I need to just sit and chill. Because like, yeah, jam, whatever. Oh dear, I apologise to you if you're watching this and you feel I'm being abrupt or whatever. Onward. And the last secret weapon. This might look a bit horrible in the bowl there. What that is it's a beetroot. We grew it on the allotment. It's been boiled, then peeled, and you can see the juice that's coming out of it is that beautiful bright magenta colour. So if I want to, I can colour my dish a more jammy sort of colour by blitzing that up and putting it in the mix. I'm not sure I want to, you know, I'm not sure I want to. For this one, it's the first time I've done turnip jam. I want to see the colour of the turnip jam. Yes, I'm putting some ginger in, but it's not a dramatic colour shift. It's only a bit yellowy. So I don't want to mix in too many other colours at the moment, but maybe another day I'll show you colouring with beetroot, which is very easy to do. You just, you know, blitz it and put it in your dish. Scott's top tips, Scott's secret weapons. Scott's got secret weapons, he's got top tips. All you've got is fish and chips. And fat lips. Right. It is important to note here that time is elapsing. I'm going to edit. You know, you're not going to see this, but this is going to sit here and do this at a very low heat for a while. It's just coming up to what you might call a simmer. It's not even clocking yet. But I'm going to leave that for a while doing that. You can see its little star anise in there. You know, maybe a good 10, 15, 20 minutes. Because I really want that pectin to start breaking down into the mixture, because we don't want to have to... Oh, I haven't got the light on. Bing! Actually, you see the reflection of the light in the... Anyway, you don't want the sugar mix. When I add the sugar, there's a limit to how long I can start boiling it away. And that's number one, because I want to boil off the excess water. But number two, I don't want the sugar to caramelise and all go brown. I'm not trying to make toffee. I'm trying to make jam. So temperature is going to be important, not to bring it to too high a temperature with the sugar in it, but also not to leave it at that temperature for too long. So that's why I'm doing this at the start. It's all starting to mush down, just really slowly. Can you hear that clocking? No. Leave it alone anyway, will you? And now while that time is elapsing, I'm going to chill out with the fake beer. But of course I forgot that whilst it's at this stage I should be giving it some mashing up. And that's going to help to break up those pieces so that they're smaller when you come to spread them as a jam, but also to break up that structure of the pectin and help it to mix into the water. So I'm going to get doing that. This isn't going to completely mash them up. You'll see it's not actually going to do a great deal of difference. Turnips are quite tough, so they're going to take a bit of cooking. This seems now like quite a lot of water, but after I've given it the adequate cooking time, it might have boiled off a bit, you see. So, also worth noting, I've only got one cardamom and one bit of star anise in there. I don't want to overload it with those very fragrant, reasonably strong flavours. I just want them to be in there at this stage, just subtly enhancing it. So my pieces are still holding together fairly well. It's going to take a lot more cooking, that is. I'm going to leave it on this low cooking process until they're much more mushy. And now I can have my fake beer. Alcohol free. I don't drink alcohol. I drink alcohol free beer, and it's much, much, much better.
One licking his lips as they faced off yesterday at the weigh-in. As well though, but from long range it was Nurse's ground for me. So into the tank, down the stretch, 9 more minutes left.
So, the sun has gently set. I've sat and watched 12 rounds of boxing. I'm much more relaxed, drunk my fake beer, and in between rounds, whilst the boxers have been receiving advice and having their faces patched up, I've been gently mashing this with the hand masher. So it's been cooking for about 40 minutes, and I've been giving it a subtle but firm mash every 3 minutes or so. And now you can see my twiglets, my little sticks, have broken down into irregular but regular small pieces. Bit more like jam. And through the process, the stock, as it is at the moment, started to take on a little bit of colour. There might have been some caramelisation of the sugars that were already present in the turnip. I haven't added any sugar yet. And it looks quite thick at the moment as well, doesn't it? So it might be that I need to add a bit more water for the amount of sugar that we're going to put in, because the sugar needs to be completely dissolved. I'm not trying to dump a bag of sugar in there, mix it up and leave it, you know. It's going to have to be completely dissolved. So we're about ready for our sugar. Nearly ready. Before we get there, I just want to make sure that these turnips have completely had a chance to break down. Really hot. And you know what, I think I'm going to just give that another 10-15 minutes. Just real gentle clocking away. Just going to add a bit more water at this stage. And I'm just going to give that a bit longer. You know, I don't want to rush this. If you make something with love and you enjoy making it, because like I said earlier at the start of this video, I was in a bit of a tetchy mood, wasn't I? Because I've been doing other stuff in the day and I got this set up and I wanted to record it, but the camera was holding me back and rah 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 rah. Just the process of doing it and sitting down and watching the boxing. Now I'm relaxed and I'm enjoying the whole thing. So that's part of it. It's mindfulness practice, isn't it? So it's all good in the hood. I'm not rushing it. And you know what? These turnips are 100% organic. I've seen them from seed to pot. They were picked yesterday, so they're not quite today's produce, but you know, this is at the high end when you think about it, with your posh restaurants and stuff like that. You know, a lot of love's gone into the growing of them. A lot of goodness has gone into the growing of them. So treat them with respect. We're going to get the best out of them. I think this is going to be a good one. Me again. Just thought I'd better taste this. At the moment it's just sort of turnip consomme. Apologies if I'm all dirty. Should have put an apron on, shouldn't I? Anyway, it does taste. There's like a hint of sweetness in there. There's a lot of freshness, but there is a bitter edge. There is a bitter edge at this stage. So I'm really considering maybe using that lapsang souchong to add a smoky tone to it. And the bitterness might take on a more barbecue-y sort of feel. But, and you know, sticky sweet barbecue, that's fine. But I'm going to wait till we add the ginger, because I liked the idea of the turnip and ginger to start with. So we're going to wait till we've added the ginger and we're going to retaste after that. And of course, shitloads of sugar. But it's important to note what's going on underneath at the base, you know, to taste as you go along, to understand how you're going to layer up these flavours. And which flavours, therefore, which flavours to layer up. So that's my base palate. Slight bitterness. A little bit salty as well, I guess. It's going to be interesting, this. Okay, it's had about another half hour. I put a bit more water in, and I've added a couple more cardamoms, and now it's starting to really smell quite beautiful, quite fragrant, almost like marshmallow. Marshmallow, 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 man. Yeah, it's got a really nice smell. But there are still a few pieces, some of the bigger pieces, that still seem to be retaining that tough structure. There's one there. They still seem to stick. When I squash it in my fingers, actually that one's nearly there. What it is it's the pieces that have got more skin on them because I left the skins on because I think, you know, leave all the goodness in there. So we're getting really close now. That's what I wanted. I wanted these pieces to almost be falling apart if you put some pressure on them, so that when you got it in the jam format and you're spreading it, you know, they start to spread with the rest of the jam, and even start to, as I've been squashing it down, you know, there's little bits there now getting into it that are going to create more when we put this molecular structure of pectin around it. They're going to hold in there, and it's going to be a lot more of a jammy consistency. So we're getting there now, and of course, like that, the whole point of this is to cook out that pectin into the water. So at the moment we're only halfway there. It's in the water, but we need to add the sugar, and you know, like 50% of this is going to be sugar at the end, at least, probably. We need to add that sugar and then start dissolving it in. But we're in no rush still in no rush. I think one more half hour and then we'll really be at the point where I want it. Time to make with the ginger and sugar. I'm going to go with the ginger first. I didn't want to put it in earlier because it would just cook it all out. Because whilst I don't want to cook the flavour out, I do want to actually cook the rawness of the ginger a bit, don't I? So this is a tough job. Sometimes you might catch your fingers in it, so Scott's top tip: don't catch your fingers in it. Stick a fork in it, just hold the forklet. It's going fairly well. Not much ginger compared to the amount of what's it called, is it? What is it called? Turnip. It's a turnip. So while I cut a bit more ginger, I will now edit away magically. That's not by any means all of it, but I just want to give it a head start. I just want to give it a head start on dissolving. And yes, this is very heavy on sugar, this recipe, but it is jam. You're not supposed to eat it by the bowl load. You can hear the grains of sugar on the surface of the pan at the bottom, can't you? So gotta make sure it's all dissolved in. And at this stage, I'm going to put some of our acid in as well. Four of those. Already you can see it's taken on a bit more of a glossy texture. And my oh my, it's very sweet. And you can kind of tell that there's turnip in there, but it's actually quite delicious. it's kind of got, I'll tell you what, not being funny, but it's kind of got a sort of Sunday roast. I'll tell you why as well. When my mom makes Sunday roast, she makes carrots with sugar, and that flavour, like, that's giving me a flavour memory, you know. It's got a very warm, very comforting feeling to it, this jam. Quite incredible. Not at all bitter. So I'm going to leave this to come up to the boil again. And what's going to happen now, I'm going to take the top off actually, because what's going to happen now is going to try and get rid of some of that water. And of course, the pectin will be reforming now. Let's put another one of these acids in for luck. The pectin is now reforming into the molecular structure that's going to create our jam, so we need to let it do its work. More waiting. Or watching boxing. Just had a thought, got some dried sultanas, and I think the colour of this, it's a lovely sort of golden, a very light gold colour, and it kind of looks like you'd expect to see it just punctuated with a few sultanas, just to sort of remind you that it's a sweet dish. So a generous handful of those in there. Put an equal amount of blueberries in every muffin. Do you know how long that's going to take? And then in each jar, hopefully there'll be one or two sultanas just sort of peeping out there, just to sort of say, this is a jam. Go with that jam. It ain't too much for me. Yeah. See, I told you I'd feel better once I got some cooking done. I want to just zoom you in a bit closer. Okay, at this stage, you can see why while it's bubbling away here, it's starting to get thick around the edges. It's not actually boiling here. It's because over here, if you look, when I start to just knock it with my spoon, it's a bit more congealed. It's a bit more like the jam that we want at the edges there. And in this middle section, that's where it's a bit more liquid. It's boiling away a bit. So we just need to reduce it down a bit more. This is ideal, it's going really well. A way to test it is to freeze it. So put a spoon or a couple of spoons or a plate in the freezer, and then spoon some of this on the frozen plate or spoon, put it in the freezer for 5 minutes, bring it out and see if it's like the jam you want, see if it's set when it's cool. Because when it's warm, it's still going to be very fluid, but you can still see that congealing sort of jelly-like quality to it, can't you, that gelatinous quality. So that's it working. Also, I've been tasting. It's really hot, so be careful. Oh god, it's so delicious. Alhamdulillah. I've added just a little bit more lime juice, just to the point where I can sort of just taste it getting a bit sharp. And I'll tell you what, the ginger is not fire in there, but it's like you taste sweetness, then what's that, it's turnip, and then there's the slight sharpness to cut through it from the lime. And then just finally on the palate, there's that little bit of burning ginger, just in the back of your mouth, just a little bit of burning ginger. So I'm not going to add any more, because that's a really nice balance. I don't want it to be like, it's really gingery. So just the fact that you can just notice it on the back of your palate if you pay attention, that's enough. That's perfect for me there. I'm just going to leave that clocking like that, just so that this more gelatinous area is more prevalent. Maybe give it 5 or 10 more minutes, then I'm going to start checking it with the frozen spoon technique, which I'll show you. Cool. I'm really happy with this, it's looking really nice. Okie dokie, secret weapon time. It's tasting absolutely brilliant, and hopefully I haven't boiled it away too much when I was breaking down the pectin to overboil it and destroy the pectin. I think it all seems to be setting around the sides, but I just had a thought. When I used to work as a chef, I saw the use of turmeric in oil, and it gave the oil a really luminescent, bright, vibrant colour. So I don't want to overload this dish, this jam, with turmeric so that it ends up being highly flavoured with the turmeric. I'm just going to put about half a teaspoon. Put that in. Give it a mix in. And hopefully that's just going to add some colour to the dish. Already I can see it has. It's a lovely golden colour anyway, but hopefully this is just going to add a bit more of that luminescent sort of golden glow to it. Certainly can't hurt. Also worth saying, the magic temperature, the correct temperature for this is 105 degrees if you're doing your thermometer work, but if the fact is that you can see it boiling away, then that's at least 105 degrees. There's always 100 degrees because that's the boiling point of water, so this is doing exactly what I want it to. I'm going to say in about half an hour that's probably going to be ready, set, go. And so what we'll do is in about half an hour I'll start testing it with the frozen spoon in the microwave, in the freezer test, which is literally just put spoons in the freezer so they're cold, put it on the cold spoon, put it in the cold again, and what you're doing is you're doing a quick set just to see if it's setting, you know. In the freezer I've got a frozen spoon. Take a little bit of the liquid, put it on the frozen spoon, and that's going to really quickly cool it down. And then what we're looking for is the viscosity. That still looks a little bit liquid there, but I'm just going to put this in the freezer for two minutes. Right, this has literally only been in the freezer for 60 seconds, and now you can see it's starting to be more like a thick glutinous sauce. So it's close. Just want it to go one step more and just thicken up a little bit more. Of course that's got none of the turnip in, so with all the turnip in amongst that more glutinous sauce, it's going to already be a bit more like marmalade. I'm tasting that, and let me tell you, it tastes almost like barley sugar. That's what it reminds me of, barley sugar. So I estimate we're about sort of 5-10 minutes away from it being ready. And you can see I've got my steamer on the go, because in there I'm going to be steaming my jars, and that's going to sterilise them before we put the jam in them. Simple thing. I'm going to spoon the jam out with either a ladle or a simple spoon, pouring it in, nice and careful. And then once we've got the jam in, of course we've got to put the lid on, but we don't want to put something that's not sterile straight on the top. So what traditionally has been done is they use wax to seal it, but we're just going to use a little bit of cling film over and then put the lid on. Simple. Top tip as well, use tongs to get your jars out from the steam. And let that cool before you start spooning it around. And also, sterilise your spoon before you start spooning it as well. It's sterile as you can get everything. There's no point dipping a dirty spoon in there and ruining it all, is there? Jeez, that's hot. Oh, it's really late now. And I've been doing this all night. This is how much I've got. Got, what would you call that? 1, 2, 3, 4 medium jars, 1 large jar, 1 very attractive sort of presentation gift jar, and that's the last bit left over. That bit's a bit more watery than the rest. As I spooned it out, you can see this is quite dense. Lovely. If I hold it up to the light, well, do you know what, we'll let it set and we'll come and look at it when it's set. Hopefully it will set. It does look from here, look at that, the presentation one. It does look very nice, doesn't it? It looks really sort of golden. I think I did leave the sugar to cook a little bit longer than I hoped I was gonna, and I had to cook the turnips a little bit longer than I thought I should have. So we'll see how it comes out the jar when it's set. But that presentation one looks a lovely sort of honey golden orange, doesn't it? It's quite jammy now, and you see the little punctuation of the sultanas, those dark pieces. They actually work quite nicely, don't they? So yeah, turnip jam.
If you got out of here, there are a lot of people who think you'd go start killing people again.
Again? Well, you guys are missing more. I haven't killed anyone.
Shall they say